So, as I said, the original Globe was built in 1599. If you know your Shakespeare timelines back to front, which I'm sure you all do, we know that he was already writing and performing in plays before 1599. So Shakespeare is an actor as well as a playwright. Apparently he was a very bad actor, and so he often wasn't given the main roles in his plays, but we know he was also performing. Things like Romeo and Juliet are already written before then, a very popular one. Or Titus Andronicus, a very violent play where a mum eats her children in a pie. You've got the early history plays, so the Henry VI plays are already being performed. Does anyone know the name of the theatre in which they were performed? There are a few possible options here. Has anyone seen the film Shakespeare in Love? Yeah, well in that film then you have the Rose Theatre. It's a construction they did just for that production. The Rose Theatre we know is associated with Shakespeare early on in his career, and we think some of his plays were being performed there. It's most famously linked with Christopher Marlowe, the playwright who wrote Dr. Faustus, and the Rose Theatre is again just down the road from here, very near the original site of the Globe. But there is another theatre over in Shoreditch, so very trendy, very hipster North London now. At the time, again, outside of the city walls, so you're able to build a theatre there. Shakespeare and his company, his group of actors, have a theatre called The Theatre. It's a very imaginative name, put a lot of thought into that. It's one of the first purpose-built theatres in England. So when Shakespeare's growing up, drama and acting and theatre really means travelling groups of players that come from one town to another and move on. The concept of building a space specifically to perform in is quite new in Shakespeare's time. And the theatre is one of the most new, exciting theatres. Does anybody here have a particular favourite Shakespeare play? Or a play they're studying at school or anything like that?
At
Yes.
school, we're reading Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet, perfect. If you imagine we were going to put on a production today of Romeo and Juliet, what we would probably do is get some bits of script, get people to read them, and pick who's best for which part based on how they read it. That's not how it works in Shakespeare's time. So every single Shakespeare play, it doesn't matter whether it's a comedy, a tragedy, or a history, however you want to classify them, they're all written for the same group of people. So that's why you often get very similar characters coming back again and again in each different play, because Shakespeare is writing with very specific people in mind when he creates his characters. So Shakespeare's company, the group of actors, is made up entirely of men. We'll come back to this later. They're performing all of the plays together. So we know, for example, there's an actor called William Kemp who is very good at doing all the funny parts. So Shakespeare writes his kind of clown figures with him in mind. You have Richard Burbage, the very famous actor of the day. He's really good at doing all of the strong leading men, so the Henry V's and things. Shakespeare's writing with these people in mind, and his company is called the Lord Chamberlain's Men. So the Lord Chamberlain is their patron. He gives them money to perform, he gives them a name. You have to be associated with a patron to be allowed to perform at the time. Acting is very regulated. You have to have your scripts checked, everything like that. When Queen Elizabeth I dies in 1603, Shakespeare's troupe become the King's Men. So at that point they have King James I as their patron. That tells you a little bit about how important they were at the time, how highly considered they were. So his company, his group of actors, they have this theatre over in Shoreditch. They don't own the land, but they built the theatre on it. Now, there becomes a massive legal battle, basically, over who's allowed to own this theatre. Shakespeare and his company get told they have to leave in the winter of 1598. They get kicked out, and they come up with a very clever plan. They don't own the land, but they do own the building. So they pull it down, they dismantle it, they take the pieces of wood, drag them through London, skating over the frozen Thames, because it's winter at the time and the Thames can freeze over. And they bring the pieces of wood over here to build the globe. So when the globe is first built in 1599, it's from stolen pieces of wood from the theatre. It's supposed to be the most beautiful theatre on this side of the river. Ben Jonson, another contemporary of Shakespeare, calls it the glory of the bank. So we know it's really popular. When you go inside, we can have a look at how big it is in there. At the time, we think it would have had around about 3,000 people for every performance. You'll see when we go inside, that would be absolutely jam-packed. Nowadays, we allow about half the number, so around about 1,600 people in there, and it looks really full. So at the time, we know it's incredibly popular. We know this because we think they would have a different show on every day. So Monday you might have Romeo and Juliet, Tuesday you might have As You Like It, Wednesday The Merchant of Venice, so on, so on. Tells you something about how often they like to come to the theatre at the time. They don't have a lot of the entertainment we have now. They don't have Netflix at home, they don't have EastEnders to watch, they haven't got iPods to listen to. If you want some entertainment, if you want to hear a story, if you want a trip out, this is where you come. Most people in the audience, particularly if you're a woman, are illiterate. So they can't read and they can't write. So they've not got access to reading poetry or stories at home. Everything really comes through what you can hear, and this is one of the most important places to come to hear a narrative. We would always say, I'm going to see a play, I'm going to see Hamlet, or I'm going to see Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, or whatever it is. They would always say, I'm going to hear a play, because the language of the play is what's important more than what you're seeing on the stage. So you have the Globe Theatre. It's very, very popular. Lots of Shakespeare's plays are specifically written for this space. So things like Henry V, in the prologue, they talk about the wooden O. That's them talking about this building we're in, or we're about to go into now. Or you'll probably see on the roof of the stage, it's painted to look like heaven, just on the underside. So when Hamlet talks about this majestical roof fretted with golden fire, he's not just talking philosophically, he's also talking about the gold paintings above his head in this theatre. Everything goes very well for them there. Shakespeare makes a lot of money from the Globe. He's able in the end to go back to Stratford-upon-Avon and buy the second most expensive house in the town. So we know he's made a lot of money from the Globe. Everything's going very well until a fire burns it down in 1613. So it's during a performance of Henry VIII. The play is actually called All Is True, but we call it Henry VIII because it's about Henry VIII. In the play, he comes onto the stage to announce him with all his pomp and circumstance. In the stage directions, it suggests that you have the sound of a cannon firing. If we were going to put on our production of Romeo and Juliet, again, we would probably get a laptop and some speakers, and we could press a button, so if you need an explosion or you need any particular noise, we can make it through electronic means. In Shakespeare's time, if you need a sound effect, you have to make it. So they fire a real cannon, and the cannon fodder which they use to light it lands on the thatched roof, and the whole building burns down. Now, by some accounts, people were enjoying the play so much they refused to leave and had to be forced out. We know somehow that everybody managed to survive. It's a complete miracle, I don't know how. At the time they only have 2 doors, very narrow, small doors. Everybody manages to escape. Only one man is recorded as having been hurt. His trousers caught fire. He was fine in the end though. He came up with a very clever plan. What might you do in the theatre if your trousers were on fire? Any guesses? What did he do? Well, he had a beer in his hand.
Oh.
And he poured it onto his trousers, and then he was fine. So you can take whatever moral you want to take from that story there.